All right, we're looking at your article, Slide Guitar, Oh Man.
Yep.
So what was the launching off point for this one?
Well, so I got set up for an audition with an original band that was looking for a guitarist.
Okay.
It was one of those setups where it's like the singer strums acoustic, and then it's drums, bass, and lead guitar, right? So it's actually kind of cool because the lead guitar parts, they weren't always all the way through the songs, which I can appreciate, getting breaks and just
Yeah.
kind of featuring when necessary, because there was that strum guitar going on from the singer the whole time. But anyway, what it ended up being was actually a lot of slide guitar parts, and slide guitar solos too. And I know you've seen me play slide guitar a few times, and mostly like fall out of my chair drunk, but I can pull it off.
That's when I see you. You don't have to put slide guitar in there. That's redundant. When I see you, you're mostly sliding off your chair drunk. So
That's fair. So yeah, like I was saying, there's I can play simple slide guitar. I've never put the time in to become a slide guitarist.
yep.
Just I put enough time in to understand the basic idea and be able to play some relatively simple things. I don't have a lick library built up, or even a proper skill set or technique set built up. So I was hitting all these slide guitar parts, which were in themselves super super complex, but they were more advanced than I would compose for myself to play, and had ever really had to play. So I found myself scrambling to develop a half decent slide technique to play these licks and lines accurately and smoothly and all that in time for an audition within a week. It's just like, well, week's not a lot of time to develop a whole new technique.
No, it is not.
And on top of that, learn all the parts as well, right?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. So, like, how many songs were you supposed to go into the audition with?
Just 3.
Okay.
But 2 of them were heavily featuring slide guitar. One of them was like purely slide guitar.
Okay. That's a lot.
And I had both songs that featured slide guitar had slide guitar solos in them, but the one that was heavily slide guitar focused had a pretty tricky solo they got pretty high up on the neck and jumped around a lot. It was that video I sent you where I played it atrociously. Yeah.
Yeah, again, your level of atrocious and mine are quite different. I could tell that wasn't perfect for sure, but I 10% away.
It was getting there. It was getting there. But yeah, it was a good experience because turns out slide guitar is actually pretty fun to play.
Yeah. Well, and it's just another nice tool to have. What I found really funny about your article, so I like to read these before we chat and like jot notes down. So I'd like jot a note down. Your next paragraph would answer my question already, and I was like, "You fucking are cheating or something." Like, so it's like a really good. I mean, it's funny because you're talking about slide, but you're also telling a good story, and you were asking good questions, and then like a good story should answering them.
Mm-hmm.
But you took away all my thunder.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So you're really funny. Like, you stole at least 3 of my lines from me from questions I wanted to ask. And I liked it though.
Without even really trying. That's good.
You don't even
I wasn't
try.
actively participating in ruining your process.
At least I have a process is all I'm proud about. So I like your comment about for me the emotion a slide guitarist can express is perhaps the closest approximation to what a human voice can achieve on a string instrument. Because can I tell you what my question was? I'm like, why do you think we like slide guitar? There's the answer.
Well, so this is actually quite fascinating to me. Is if you jump back into the brains of like early blues musicians who developed a lot of like the bending techniques and slide and all that, their whole goal was to approximate human voice on their instrument. That was what they were trying to do, get that smoothness of transition that a human voice gets, that kind of even in a sense that sloppiness that a human voice has, because when you bend a guitar note, even some of the best players will be a bit flat or a bit sharp on their target note. And that's, the human voice is always a bit flat or sharp too. It's like, if you get perfectly on pitch, that's more accident than intent, and you get close enough, like the human voice gets close enough, but it's that imperfection that is interesting to the human brain anyway, which is why perfectly quantized, perfectly auto-tuned songs get boring after a few listens, is because the brain itself, you might not know what's going on, but your brain is like, wow, there's nothing here of actual interest because it's perfected.
Well, it's lacking the human.
The brain just kind of tunes out. Yeah.
Which is interesting because you've seen those videos, I'm sure, where you can like spit stuff into a computer or put stuff in a computer and it spits out a song. Like it's an algorithmic based song writing is coming.
Yep.
And it's going to be coming at a high level.
Yep. All that AI stuff.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see like when they can long term become a human feel.
Well, I see there's a lot of debate, and I think it's more emotionally driven than factually driven about whether AI could ever have a human feel, right? Have that what makes it human, that they could put that in. But honestly, in my opinion, if you give this AI, essentially this machine, this learning machine, all the samples of recorded audio ever from humans or from a particular artist, and it's going to be able to analyze and see what that feel is comprised of. It's going to be able to somehow break that down and reiterate it back out.
Yep.
So I think that AI could quite easily give a human feel, but that would, the very idea of that would anger a lot of musicians or just artists or just humans. Like, no, a machine could never replace us, can never achieve what we can achieve with our soul, and our feel. And it's like, well, honestly, a machine probably could break it down to an algorithm.
It's gonna get there
and approximate it.
Yeah. I saw an Apple did a podcast with Jack White. I can't remember who was with it, but who was interviewing him. But it was really fun because he's always been hey, vintage, we got to old school record all that. But on his last album, he embraced technology and he's like, I get it. I'm like, you can totally use this to create loops, and I've done stuff I've never done before because I use it as a tool. I use this technology as a tool. I didn't use it as my only thing, but it's a part of the project. It's just an interesting way of taking it. All right, so my next question. Again, you've answered all mine. No, I was gonna say, like, as a guitarist, which you are, and I'm dabbling, I'm guitarist adjacent. You can only pick so much stuff. It's your paragraph would say, why accept the challenge? Which, you're kind of like, hey, I'd like to challenge myself. I'd like to get better. I'd like to tackle all these different things because you're not good at it now, so you want an avenue to get better.
Well, I was willing to get better at it. Like, why not? Right? It's not something that like I said, it's not something that I have developed a lot. And in the article, I said I'm not totally useless, just mostly useless. Right?
I did like that self-deprecating, depreciating.
Yeah, deprecation. But
it's one of those.
As you fall into your sound, right? It's what makes you sound like you sound is the techniques and the style in which you play. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. It's one of the best things you can do as an artist of any kind is to have your signature so that you are recognizable, whether it's a painting that people know your style of painting, like, oh, that's a Rembrandt, oh, that's Picasso, whatever, right? Or it's oh, that's Slash on guitar. Like, we know that's Slash because that's how Slash sounds, that's how Slash plays. It's that signature sound. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's plenty of things like that if you told Slash to try to play that, he'd fumble at and totally bomb because it's just not his style. He's great at what he does, and that's fantastic. Well, on the same way, I've got my particular style. It's more decorative. It's more laid back. I've never been like a choppy speed meister. It's just never spoken to me. I've never had a real draw to it, and I just like things that that elicit a feeling in me.
Yeah.
I sit in awe of people who are chopped up and, you know, shredding and all. Like, oh, that's great, that's cool, it's an amazing skill to have, but that's not where my interest lies, so I don't do it, so I can't really do it very well. And the same thing with slide guitar. It's been the tiniest little part of my repertoire of skills that I use as a decoration when I want or need to, but I've never been like, oh, let's get chopped up on it and let's be a slide guitar player.
But that's where I think your talent lies so much with you. And I think this might sound like a diss, but you're such a utility player. You can play, you dabble so well in all these different things, and I could see somebody else who writes songs with me, just if they're a slide player, every song's gonna have a fucking slide and you're gonna love it. But you
Right.
you write to the song so well. Like, that's your gift. Like, you understand uniquely what the song needs and you write to it. And I think great guitarists like Mike Campbell did that with Tom Petty all the time. You know, it's not, hey, I'm a slide player, I'm Slash and I got to put all these notes in per minute. It's, hey, what does a song need and let me do it. Because you do it with your Long After Midnight. You do the same thing. You a totally different style, and you bring to the songs what they need. So, you know, I could see
that
why
one, that one was a pain to learn too. Like, because that was, you know, it's an industrial metal project, and, you know, I've played my fair share of like hard rock, but I've barely dabbled in metal, really. And so wrapping my head around that, and once I figured out it was all Phrygian, I was like, okay, it's Phrygian, here we go.
Yeah, it's all frigid to me.
Flat seconds all the way.
Yeah, that's over my head. I pretend to play guitar. This is my other question. So we have a slide solo, kind of a bridge section. I mean, it's still a solo, and a song that's soon to be released, Higher Ground. What made you on that song want to grab the slide versus playing a regular solo?
The same reason that I come up with the parts I come up with in any scenario for any song. I feel or I hear it in my head, like this is what belongs here. This is what this part is calling out to have. And I mean, it's the same way that I try to write lyrics. If I'm really going in like writing lyrics for my own song, I try to just listen to what the song wants from me.
Yeah.
Like topically, and then whether it wants to be, you know, more direct or more ambiguous, you know, or more poetic or more straightforward and, you know, harsher or softer, you know, all these little aspects. And most of the time I try to just like close my eyes and like play out a visual in my head and then try to describe that or speak to that scene. And it's the same thing with the sounds. I just kind of like try to hear what the song is essentially asking me for, and then in some butchered fashion present it and deliver it, you know, because you never, it's like, it's that Platonic idea of the ideal realm, right? And I'm trying to steal thoughts from the ideal realm, and I get them and I pull them down, but when I pull them down to earth, they become mere shadows of their former glory, and that's what I'm able to present. But I try to listen for those ideals. Yeah.
But it's fun to always strive for that too, those ideals, right? Like that's not how I think about music at all, and I think that's so cool that you do. Like, I think the goal of mine is to think of music like that. I think of my bridge part, and I felt more like a scientist trying to dissect something. Let's cut this fucking thing open. Let's see what's there. If that doesn't fit, we don't need that. I'll take, you know. And I was just like, it's such a. I say it all the time. Like, I'm like that riff that we were working on, Blue Light. I'm like, I stumbled and found that. I don't know if it's lost and it needs a home, but here we go. Which is why I kind of sometimes go crazy when you give me like a new technique to work on, because I'm like, I know that if I commit to learning this technique all the way through, there'll be 7 more songs. Because I'm crazy. All right.
Well, that happened to me so much. I mean, you remember my song "Baby"?
Yeah.
Probably.
I do.
I was. Anyway, funny story. I actually sang that to my son the other day, just that for a joke.
Be sad if you didn't get a standing ovation. because he can't stand because he's too young.
He can't stand.
That's why
he is only 3 months old.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. But I was doing, I was doing alternating arpeggios through the scale. So like that when you do like the G, A minor, B minor, C, D, E minor, F sharp diminished, G, that kind of thing. And I was doing that, it wasn't just going up, it was going up and then down the next, then up the next and down the next, and that alternating thing. And somehow, well, for me anyway, when I practice a technique like that, and I'll just keep going, I'll just, loop it, trying to get it really, really perfected, really comfortable, just really in my hands. And so my brain will start to just kind of wander, right? My mind starts to wander because it becomes this thing after a while. And then even my hands will get bored, and my brain and hands are bored together, so they start doing something else. And all of a sudden I'm coming up with song ideas.
Yeah. Again, I think that learning technique like that, learning songs is the same. Like to get something into your fingers for a song and you just want to work at that same measure over and over again, and you get bored and all of a sudden you're like, here's a new song. And I think that's those are the gifts in my mind.
Yeah.
Your last paragraph, isn't that a little lazy? Now, I've told you before, when you say stuff like that, I feel personally attacked. So
I should have said, isn't that a little Luke?
No, isn't Luke a little lazy? Would be more funny. Because then I'd read your article and be like, what a dick. What a... But I think that regardless. But you're really talking a lot about, like, if you look at your playing as a spectrum, like, what do I have time for? What is most important? What do I commit to learning? And I think that's such a tough thing to do. I mean, via all the instruments, like where you don't want to be weak in an area, but you can't be strong in every area.
Right. And I just related it, I think in here I related it to, like to doctors. You have your podiatrist who literally specializes in feet.
Yeah. Well,
that's their.
I'd do that one. Me and Quentin Tarantino.
That's their whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. As an example, right? And you have your general practitioner who just kind of is an overall idea of human health and whatnot, but it's going to send you to a specialist if it's beyond his skill level.
Yeah.
Because he's the master. Well, he's the master of none, right? Kind of this general physician. So he sends you to the masters if the problem calls for it. And I see everything broken down that way. I mean, there's no one in the world who knows every language. There's no one in the world who plays every instrument. And you break it down even into subsets of that. I would be inclined to say there's no one in the world who plays guitar who is a master of every single style, of every single technique, and can authentically play everything from, like Renaissance guitar, Baroque classical, through early blues, through the newer blues like Stevie Ray Vaughan, to rock, to metal, to you get what I'm getting.
The list goes on. Yeah, no, I mean there's so many different styles and so many different techniques and so many, even when we were running through a bass part the other day and I go, man, that bass part's having 3 different to 4 different technical ideas that if a player hasn't worked on these chops, it's going to cost them a lot of time, a lot of effort for them to learn. I was thinking about this today as I was reading your article, though. I was like, sometimes I feel like players ignore certain things because they are lazy. And I think
totally.
Yeah. It almost why like I loved practicing when we would practice together, because it's like it's a gym buddy. You're a gym buddy, Nick.
Yeah.
But it's that accountability.
No, I agree.
And there's always somebody calling you out a little bit of saying, hey, it doesn't seem like you can do that. You probably should be able to do that. That honest feedback, I think, is tough. So the way that I read this, and again, personally attacked, isn't that a little lazy? And I kind of thought about some of the things in my guitar, especially my guitar playing, because I don't spend enough time on it. I kind of bounce around a little bit too much. trying to lean too hard into the utility player of all instruments, but I think there's some core concepts that I'm like, I gotta, if I want to continue to be a guitarist or want to be able to future call myself a guitarist, there's some core concepts I need to own. What are those? And kind of like, I don't know, as an honest evaluation, I think too many musicians don't do that of like, okay, here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses, here's what I know I need to fix.
Yeah. But then really focusing in on that thing and fixing it.
That would be that would be the, again, personally attacked. I think we look at music as fun a lot, and it is. I mean, I fucking love music. But that doesn't mean like it shouldn't be a little bit of work too.
I'm actually on the other, I ended up falling on the other side of that, where I hit a point where for the most part, when I sit down with the guitar, I struggle to just enjoy it like I used to. A lot of times I end up feeling like I'm at work when I pick up the guitar. And I used to feel like I used to get excited and just love it and really enjoying this. And now I'm just like, oh, I have to do this. Not I get to do this. And so I try to, when I catch myself in that mindset, I try to shift it, but I'm not always able to. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I just really don't feel like doing this right now, but it has to get done. And all right, let's just grind it out.
It is. I've said this a lot when I used to run the studio. I started that studio because I wanted to play music all the time. Very quickly, I was not playing music all the time.
Yes.
And you slow, like, I had drinks with somebody the other night, and they go, "Yeah, do you want to play live again?" I was like, "No, I don't." I mean, like, not in. I mean, like, I'll play in a cover band if I need to make a little bit of money, but like, I like playing in Lamech. I don't really have like. I don't need to play in some 2-bit, and I'm not making fun of cover bands. It's just most cover bands are 2-bit cover bands. I'm like, unless somebody's going to set up.
I mean, that's
If somebody's going to set up all my gear for me and I don't have to learn any songs and I just have to show up, I'd probably do that. But I've set up enough gigs throughout my past 10 years that I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
So.
I think you get sick of anything after a long enough time.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not right. It's not really in line with your true desires. Like for me, I don't enjoy teaching. I never have. So like. We're just being too on. I fucking hate teaching, but I'll do it if I need to. I don't fucking like playing music, but I'll fucking do it if I. That's what I feel like we're having. But where my interests lie is in creating original music, right? Yeah. So like I enjoy the process with Lamech. I enjoy writing my own songs and getting closer and closer to actually finishing and releasing some. And that's what it's all for. But then you catch yourself doing less of what you intended to do because you're so caught up with all these other things to like and then so it's like the whole purpose of doing what you're doing is now undermined because you're not able to spend the time to do it. And it's like, well, honestly, I could go back to bartending and have more time to work on my music than I have now.
I just don't know if I'm ready for an emotional breakdown on camera, but we can do it if we need to. No, dude, I fucking feel your fucking pain. Because I'm in the same boat where I'm just like, I wanted to kick both of our asses the other day because I'm like, we're idiots that we didn't do this Lamech songwriting from day one. Idiots.
Not to mention, it's a great way to record the ideas I come up with on the fly and generally forget about soon after.
It's a great way to do this back and forth and refine shit and learn from that. Guess what? What I've seen in the last year and a half, like even if you go back to our first YouTube videos that we have, they're bad. but like we're getting better and better every time. Our songwriting, like think about some of our first songs that we wrote together. Think of the first songs we wrote apart. Someday we'll have to show them on the podcast.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying we're light years ahead of where we were. We're different light years, but we're in different places. But it's the fucking just keep doing it. Do it every fucking week. But I agree with sometimes I'm like, all right, I got 60 hours of work in this week. Oh, I didn't touch a Lamech song. You fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, exactly that. Well, I do want to point out. So, as far as light years ahead of where I was, pretty much as soon as you and I started recording together, my guitar tone shot through the roof. My recording quality in general skyrocketed to like, I like skipped levels. I went so much higher so quickly.
Really?
But that was what you brought to the table, was much better recording technique and much better guitar tones. I just, I was always working with substandard gear, and I didn't have an ear for it at the time. I didn't realize that the sounds I was creating were so much worse than what they could be, right?
We have from day one continued to do this, where we learn in these weird waves. And sometimes those waves sync up together and it's really fun. And sometimes it's like, the fact that you just said that, I don't believe you. I totally believe you, but I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, I would, as my demonstration, I would say, listen to my demo recording of the song Vampire, which was the last song I recorded on my own before working at your studio, and then listen to I'll Be.
Yeah. No, and that's the magic in my mind. That fucking, and that's the dream that I had as a kid, though. Like the Beatles, and this is a lie, but they all sat in a room and adjusted microphones and recorded shit and had a good time. That's not exactly what happened. I think two of them did.
They did a lot of drugs in between adjusting microphones.
All right, I'm on board, I guess, if that's what we have to do. And I do think like Paul McCartney and John Lennon did that to a degree. I think Bon on the Edge did it to a degree. It is usually the singer, I mean, which we're both singer in Lamech, and then it's the lead guitarist. I feel like they write the ideas, they drive that force, right?
Wait, are we both lead guitarists in Lamech too?
I'm not prepared for an emotional breakdown on camera. I think I've covered that once already. I'll do it if I have to. It's going to be a trying week. Oh. What I like about where this conversation ended up, though, is like, and it's kind of the same conversation I've been having with myself, is like, if this is what you want to do, you got to do it. You got, and it's smart of us to make avenues. I'm not giving myself a pat on the back, but it's smart for us to give us avenues to force us to do it.
Right.
And that is probably one of the toughest things, just being consistent and doing it and making it a priority. That's step one.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Yep.
I think that's the goal for both of us, is just continue to make the things that we want to make a priority, which ties into my blog in a couple weeks.
Right on.
Right on. All right. Well, you have a good week.
Hey, you too. And I shall see you at the end of it.
Snap. Oh, I didn't do it yet. Damn it. You do it once. I don't think that's going to work either. Shit. We can probably make that one work.